Dodd-Frank, Senator Warren says that this bill making its way through the Senate, it'll end up here in the House, is the death to Dodd-Frank. Your response?
Well, I wish I could believe her for once. Unfortunately, I can't. The rumors of Dodd-Frank's demise are greatly exaggerated. But it doesn't mean that this isn't an important bill. It's a very important bill for a lot of our startups, for entrepreneurial ventures, for credit unions, community banks, and some of our regional banks as well. So we know that tax reform has really helped bring us 3% economic growth, but to sustain it and to move it to 3.5% economic growth, we need regulatory reform. We have so much capital sitting on the sidelines. So the House acted a long time ago with a very bold bill. This is a shadow of it. I don't want to take anything away from my Senate counterpart, Senator Crapo. He has put together a good bill. But I would point out, Kevin, we've passed a number of bipartisan measures in the House, and we expect those to be reflected in the final bill that ends up on the president's desk.
What specific ones have a realistic shot of getting attached to this during conference?
Well, as I'm fond of saying, I have agendas, but I don't have hidden agendas. So for several months, with the cooperation of our House Republican leadership, I've taken the Financial Choice Act and I've broken it up into its component parts. And frankly, I threw stuff against the chalkboard to see what would stick with a significant bipartisan vote. And so we're up now to almost 4 dozen individual bills that have either will help sustain capital formation or community bank reg relief. Almost 4 dozen bills that have received roughly 2/3 support in the House or better. We've got votes like 395 to 2, 416 to 0.
What you'd like to see attached, though, like one specific
well,
one?
for example, Congressman Shabbat's HALOS Act is an important bill. Congressman Tipton's Taylor bill, so that regulations are tailor-made to the size and the complexity of the bank. That's an important bill as well. But again, we're up to 4 dozen bills that we're just expecting to be included in the final package. Now, whether they do that in a manager's amendment or we do that in a negotiation after the fact, I'm open to either one.
Let's talk trade, because this is another huge development up here in the FinReg world. You released a statement saying that you had some concerns about the policies that President Trump is proposing with regards to trade. Do you think that he's heard the message? Has this administration heard the message? And do you think he's going to allow for carve-outs or finally or ultimately get to a policy that you would be able to support?
Well, I don't know the answer to the question. I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the president privately on this, but I have had my voice heard. One, I want to make it very clear, we would not have 3% economic growth were it not for President Trump. I mean, the tax reform, generational, a huge sea change in regulation. But my fear is, as far as he's taken us, he's going to start walking it back with trade. I have publicly said the president needs to be very careful here. He needs to be surgical. And I do disagree with the president. My reading of history, and I hope he's right and I'm wrong, but my reading of history, I don't know any winners in a trade war. Already, I'm hearing from companies in my district that take imported steel and they turn it into product. One provides shelving for stores like Walmart, another does kind of prefabricated steel building. They're very concerned about this, and they're concerned about what it's going to mean for pricing for their customers, what it's going to mean to their bottom line, what it's going to mean to their workforce. And so trade is not a zero-sum game. And so I know the president is the master negotiator. I hope he can use this for negotiating purposes. But already we know that the EU is threatening retaliation. This is not good. And there's so much good the president has done for the economy. And I'm afraid that this could walk it back. And I just counsel him that he be very careful and very surgical. I know that there are some, particularly China, who have abused trade rules, who have not lived by the rules of the WTO, but let's be surgical in that approach and not punish other countries, much less ourselves.
Final question for you. Gary Cohn, he's out. What would you like to see someone replace him who advocates for more of a nationalistic economic approach or more of a globalist worldview in terms of trade? And what are you going to be looking for? And do you have any names of people that you would like to see? Maybe yourself.
Well, I will be looking for a job at year's end. We both know that. When you say global versus national, I don't really view that to be the dichotomy. I view it to be, is it somebody who is committed to free trade or somebody in free enterprise? And so, one, I think it's a real blow to this administration to lose somebody like Gary Cohn. I mean, I was suspicious at first, I will admit. but he has proven to be a great voice when it comes to proposing and working through the system, deregulation efforts. He knows our capital markets. He knows banking. I'm not sure we would have had the the tax relief plan without him. So I think it's a huge loss. So names I would love to see fill that. Unfortunately, most of them are gone. Names like Friedman and Hayek and others. So outside of them, there are some people that I'm suggesting to the White House. I don't necessarily care to name them on camera.
When you're ready to name them, you let me know, Mr.
You will
Chairman.
be the first.
I appreciate that.